You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. This episode of Pizza Quest is brought to you by Central Milling. Hand-selected grain, expertly milled for passionate bakers. Visit centralmilling.com to learn more. I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to Pizza Quest. Welcome back to Pizza Quest, because we hope many of you are returners. Today, we're doing something that we typically do once or twice a year when I go to the pizza shows, which is to sit down with either Paul, Tiffany, or somebody else from Lloyd pans, who are basically the big players in the field these days, making pans for Detroit style and Sicilian style and any kind of pan pizzas, but they do a lot more. And today we've got Paul Tiffany, who is, let me see if I get this right, Paul. You are the senior manufacturing engineer at Lloyd. So you can talk a little bit about more the engineering side than the sales side can talk about it, at least because you make these things and you design them, I'm guessing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do? We had you on in Atlantic City last, but we only were able to do it on audio, because at the shows, we just audio tape our shows. So we weren't able to do a video like we're doing today with Zoom. So those of you who are watching this on our Zoom cast, you'll get to see Paul and also maybe some show and tell items. And then those of you who are listening on the audio podcast, I'll just describe for you some of the things that Paul's showing us today. So Paul, welcome, first of all, and good to see you again. I saw you a few weeks ago in Las Vegas at the Pizza Expo, and we decided to wait until after the expo so that we could do the Zoom version instead. What's happening? You're out in Spokane, Washington, right?
Correct. And we have to stop meeting like this.
Yeah, right. So Spokane is the side of the eastern side of Washington. What I just heard our producer Jeff say that referred to sometimes as Spoka Vegas.
That's a new one for me, but most people come here are surprised at how nice it is, and they want to come back. So shh, don't tell anybody.
I'm guessing it's closer to the Idaho border than the ocean.
Yeah, we're only 10 minutes from Idaho.
Yeah, so it's got to be beautiful country out there. So tell us, flesh out this senior manufacturing engineer title. What is it that you do?
Well, most manufacturing engineers take designs that somebody has made, and they do whatever is necessary to get the information to the shop floor, to the machinery, to the people in order to make it. And they try to advise designers on what those processes are capable of so that you don't design something that can't be built. In my case, I'm actually, because we're a small company and we all wear many hats, I actually do a lot of product design. When I came to the company, my then boss didn't know that I was a foodie and did all kinds of stuff, which turns out to have been a great benefit, because I understood how cooking works and the physics, a bit of the chemistry, and how those things can work. So it was a benefit for me in designs to be able to understand what my users are going to be going through and trying to accomplish a specific goal. Because as the late Tom Lehman, the dough doctor, used to say, pizza is just flat bread with toppings. And So the bread can be from A to Z and the toppings from 0 to infinity. So there's an infinite range of things people might want to try, but there are only a few real principles of manipulation that they can use to get there. And so here we listen to what our customers are asking for. We try to steer them to the right solution for that problem. Often it's an off-the-shelf thing, because we have already got a product for that. But we do many, many, many custom products for people, because sometimes there isn't something that works.
A lot of different sizes and shapes of pans. Since I first met you guys 5-7 years ago, every time I see at the show, there's new items on the wall there that are being displayed. So clearly you're getting requests for new things. I guess sometimes the custom things become mainstream.
Very, very often the things that we've done as customs have such wide appeal to many people that they become standards. And so that happens often, yes.
Can you give me an example of something that you started out doing for one customer and suddenly it caught fire?
In a non-pizza application, we have pans to do a sunny side up egg by baking, and it eliminated the need for griddles, which are at least a semi-skilled job and difficult to control quality with. Whereas if you can bake an egg in an oven, you'll always get the same result. So those pans were for a specific customer who was replacing griddles with combi ovens, and we made it in a regular shaped cavity, and it makes an egg that you can't tell it wasn't cooked on a griddle. And so was one customer's desire, and now they fly off the shelves because they're so popular, because it allows you to get a good quality product that looks like it's done in a traditional method, but with the consistency and the process control of a different appliance.
So you could bake it in a regular, like a deck oven, but also in a
Sure.
conveyor oven, a impinger and things like that.
Correct. You can use it in all of those. You just have to adjust some parameters to respect the appliance, how it works, but you can do that. And it allows you
to have its own natural release, or do you have to treat the pans in order to get the eggs out?
It comes with our pre-seasoned tough coat release on it, the same we use for pizzas. Generally, pizzas don't need anything additional to that. Something like an egg, which has very sticky proteins, it varies. Some people use nothing. Some people find they need to use something periodically. And if you were to use a browning agent like butter as your release aid, it will produce a crispy brown feathered edge on the product. Uh-huh. So it does look like it was done on the griddle. We are such liars.
It's all about showing. It's like the sizzle, not the steak.
Yeah, so you get the product, you get a good product, and most importantly, you get the same product every time. And if it's in an appliance like an impinger or a combi oven, you can now actually have a good product made by pimply-faced 17-year-olds, which is our challenge these days.
Well, as an engineer and a designer of some of these products, what are the things that you need to know and do? First of all, maybe for the people who aren't familiar with Lloyd, the products of Lloyd's, in the Detroit pizza world, the myth and the theory and the history of it is that it has to be made in a blue steel pan, which are hard to find and very expensive. Lloyd, I think when you guys entered in, you brought in a different metal, a different kind of pan that seems to perform to do everything that the blue steel pan could do. Am I narrating this right?
I think that's a fair evaluation. As to materials for pans, there are many materials that are suitable, and many of them can be made to work equivalently. You need to respect the material and the particular processes that are used to fabricate that, and you can produce a good acting product in either one. So although traditionally those pans were in a very light gauge steel with a wrapped around wire rim in the top, that's a sort of equipment that we don't have here. And most of our products are done in aluminum and welded or stamped. And we just simply looked at the design and said, well, the important things are that the size and the shape, reflect what the existing expectation is. But then if steel pans are usually lighter gauges because steel is stronger than aluminum. So we have to use a heavier gauge to produce the same kind of durability. But conversely, the aluminum has about 5 times the conductivity of heat that steel does. So that all works out to be essentially the same kind of thermal performance. And so you can choose to go either way. There's no magic one way or the other. You just have to give the proper baking properties for the thing to operate. And so we said, well, we already, we have a process and a material we use. Let's just do those pans that way. And that has been a rocket ride for the last, 7, 8 years. And that the booster has not run out of fuel yet. That just keeps going and going and going.
That category.
And just because there are standard, classic 8x10 and 10x14 pans, those are the original pans, you don't limit yourself to that. You can have whatever size or shape of pan you want. The style of pie, traditionally a high hydration with the cheese, the frico formed on the edge, those are all things that can be done in any style of pan. So again, you don't have to limit yourself to a particular classic style unless that's your goal. You can do similar things in other types of products. So our long pan products, which are 4 inches wide, a 4-inch wide nesting pan, and they come in 12, 18, and 27-inch lengths, allow you to have a long pan that has if you just cut them crosswise, every person gets 2 crusty edges. And that's what we all want.
Yeah.
We want the edge of the brownie. We don't care about the middle so much.
and that's what people want, is that crispy edge. Well, let's take a step back for a second, Paul. If you can tell us a little bit of the history of Lloyd. Lloyd wasn't always just in the pizza pan business, was it? Was there a product that the company was built on?
The quick disc, our infinitely more durable replacement for the traditional expanded metal screen, was the first product we came out with, and that has just slowly taken over. Screens can work, but you have to season them. They're not very durable. I think on average we find from industry sources that they last about a year. They're impractical to clean. They're certainly the lowest cost entry, but they're not the highest value because of all the work you have to do in setting them and maintaining them. So our Quick Disc 40 was the first product. We also had some baking products. We also sell to commercial bakeries. And again, we sell primarily products that are unique or different or unusual that the large suppliers don't want to deal with.
How long?
And that was something that was in the business from the very beginning as well. And so it's just grown from there.
Yeah. How long has Lloyd Pans been in existence?
Since '86.
So it's not just yesterday. It is
no.
You're going on your 40th anniversary soon.
I would say
with these discs and the screens.
Yeah, when Tracy Renneker came on board as our president, she began to work very, very hard to brand us and to make people aware of us and our capabilities and what we can bring to them that I don't believe any other competitors do. We have many competitors copying us, but rarely do we see the new products coming from that. And very large companies in that space are not really oriented towards dealing with people who need 100 of something or 10 of something. We do large orders, but we don't have to, and we try to make that so that that's an affordable process for people who want to explore their unique thing. That it's not the price is not going to kill their dream.
So you can actually manufacture almost anything that you can conceive of right there. You manufacture everything right there at your home plant.
We do. We have 120,000 square feet. We have all of our processes in-house. So the only thing that comes in is sheets of metal come in one end and completed products ship out the other end. So we're fanatic about having to control ourselves because that's how you maintain the quality and control the consistency of the product.
That's kind of like the secret sauce of the company. How the sausage is made is, I'm curious to tell that though, what it's like when a sheet of metal comes in and what happens to that in the meantime on its journey from sheet metal to finished pan. Can you do without taking us deep into the sausage making? Can you give us a kind of a step-by-step of what happens to transform that metal into a pan?
Sure. So, the sheets typically are 4 by 8 foot sheets of material in one of 3 or 4 different gauges, depending on what the product needs. And it comes in and it's most often cut into a circle or some sort of rectangular shaped blank if it's going to be a square or rectangular pan with a laser or a punch. And then it either is folded up. If it's a rectangular part, it gets folded into shape and the corners welded together. If it's round, it's usually spun on a lathe where a roller repeatedly presses the material down against usually a mail-formed tool to form the shape that we want. And then we do our finishing operations, whether it's for our PSTK, which is a metal utensil safe, permanent pre-seasoning, whether it's our silver coat, which has the same release properties but is not suitable for metal tools, but is the kind of thing where bakers don't want a lot of color development on the product. They would prefer that lighter surface that bakes like bare aluminum but has a good release. We can do actual fluoropolymer non-sticks. It's not a big part of our business, but some people demand that. And we do silicone glazes as well, which are the classic finish for the commercial bakeware industry.
What you see in loaf pans and things like that.
Yeah. Now, none of those other products are permanent in that they last forever, whereas our PSTK and SK surfaces don't have really any determinate end of life, for example. So we've got many people who have been using the same products for over 15 years. Depends on the application harshness.
They don't have to get sent back to some place to be reglazed every few years. Like when I had my bakery, I had to do that with my loaf pans, is I had to have them reglazed every 3 or 4 years. Some bakeries.
Yeah, it's typical if you're baking cakes in a glazed pan. Typically, it's about 400 cycles, and then they have to be stripped and recoated. So it's a large investment. Sometimes you have to have double inventory in order to have a set being out refurbished while if you're continuing to work full time with them.
Right. So with these, you can get almost an infinite number of rebakes without having to worry about the glaze wearing off, and the glaze doesn't get absorbed into the food itself.
No, it's incredibly neutral surface. It has no effect on flavor. I don't actually know where the durability lies. I have a bakery just across the border in Post Falls, Idaho, that we built some pans for, and they're doing drop cookies like chocolate chip and snickerdoodle. They're doing filled croissants, scones, baked bagels. And the last time I saw those pans, they had about 7,000 cycles on them, and they looked brand new, and they were still working brand new. Now they were using a rack oven. It was a commercial bread baking thing. They were doing a rack oven, and they had an oily rag that they would buff the pan with once every 10 bakes. So that was the only additional release they needed, even on a baked bagel, which is quite a sticky thing. So it depends on the application, but they're still running.
Amazing. So this is interesting. So tell us about the aluminum itself. There's a lot of fear that we have with, I don't know how much of it's real and how much of it's, again, folklore but we do have concern that aluminum can leach into your food and can cause, health problems. What's the...
Yeah. It's going to depend to a degree how much leaching. Certainly, I think every one of us knows that you wouldn't want to simmer a tomato sauce in an aluminum pan because you can taste it. In the same way that you can taste the iron in a cast iron pan if you have something acidic. So acidic foods are not good for use with like bare aluminum or copper. Any kind of reactive metal like that. Acids are, they dissolve metals, right? So it will end up in the food. But baking is different. The pH of baked goods is not acidic. It's much higher. It's neutral to high. So even on a bare aluminum, I think for bakeware, it's unlikely you probably have issues. But certainly the PSTK and SK coating systems, they completely encapsulate the aluminum in an aluminum oxide coating by a process called anodizing. And so you have this inert oxide that is the barrier to any food contact, and then there's an additional release sealer applied on top of that, which produces the release function on it. So it's not an issue.
So the anodizer that you just referred to, is that what it means when you hear the term anodized aluminum? Is that it's been treated with kind of coating?
Yes. So it's an electrochemical process where the bare aluminum part is stripped in basically a commercial easy-off tank, oven cleaner tank, to remove the natural oxide, and then it's cleaned and rinsed off, and then it goes into a weak acid tank while we pass electricity through it, and it grows the oxide. It converts the surface of the aluminum into aluminum oxide, and it grows out like microscopic basalt columns in a lava formation, and it's totally isolated.
Is there a video on like YouTube that people could look at and
I'm sure. Yeah, I would go to YouTube and and search for anodizing process, and you'll see all kinds of stuff about it.
That would be
And
cool.
then now that surface, just that anodized surface, is not an adequate baking surface because many times people anodize parts in the non-culinary, like aircraft and stuff, because it has great adhesion. It's a good paint base. Well, that's not what we want for a baking surface.
Yeah.
So a straight anodized pan must be seasoned in the same way a bare metal pan is. They're not ready to run the way they are. So we apply a sealer on top of the anodized surface, and that's what provides the release of the product. And it's permanent too. You can't get this off. The anodizing is a part of the aluminum. The sealer is bonded to that. It's not like paint on a house. It's absorbed into it. You can't get it off. In fact, if we mess up when we make it, we have to scrap them.
This episode of Pizza Quest is brought to you by Central Milling, hand-selected grain, expertly milled for passionate bakers. Central Milling is the farmer, the miller, and the baker working together to preserve American farmland for tomorrow while providing the highest quality flour and grains for the bakers of today. Dating back over 150 years, Central Milling is built on generations of knowledge, and they know that premium flour starts at the source. Employee-owned, Central Milling works directly with their farmers to sustainably grow grains that have exceptional flavor, nutrient content, color, and baking performance, which results in one of the largest selections of premium specialty flour and grains in the country. Hand-selected for the highest baking qualities, milled, cracked, or blended slowly to minimize heat generation, then bake-tested for performance. Learn more about Central Milling and their products at centralmilling.com. We're back with Paul Tiffany of Lloyd Pans. Lloyd's been filling us in part one today of how the pans are made, how anodized aluminum is created. It's all pretty fascinating stuff. And of course, your background as an engineer, and a fabricator really comes into play in making this clear to us and understand. I've heard this term anodized aluminum forever. I had never had a clue what that meant. I just knew it meant that it was theoretically safer to use than just plain aluminum for cooking. But like you said, but you can't just cook on anodized aluminum. You have to have some kind of other seal above that in order to really protect the food from.
Sure. Because just an anodized surface, if you tried to bake on it, your bread will be stuck on like glue. So it's not a release surface. It's just a way of providing a hard, durable surface that encapsulates the core aluminum and protects you from your food from contact with it. But you still have to have something beyond that in order to release. If you buy just a black anodized pan from somebody, and if it doesn't have, they don't say it has some kind of release function to it, you have to season it.
Yeah. Like you would season your cast iron skillet. Yeah,
correct. Same process.
So you had mentioned earlier that you're not limited in shape either. You're not just doing square pans. You can get round cake pans shapes and things like that. Are you seeing that? I mean, the Detroit style is very hot right now. The square pies and rectangular pies in Sicilian. Yep. That's hot. But do you have customers that actually make almost the exact same product but do it in a round form instead of a square form?
Some people have done Detroit styles in round. And some have used our long pans, which again are a 4-inch wide, but very long, skinny pan, in order that everybody gets, two crunchy edges. So you can do this the style of pie can be done in any kind of container that's suitable that you want. So you may want something different. The 27-inch, the longest version of the long pan, it's over 2 feet long, right? So you can hack that crosswise into 4-inch pieces, and everybody gets 2 edges. I love
those pans. I have one long one also, not 4 feet, but I've got I think an 18-inch long or 24-inch long pan, and it's great for parties and gatherings, and it makes a great presentation when you slide it out onto a cutting board.
I think it's like it's a riff on an Italian style handmade, very long, ovalish pie where you can bring this to the table cross-cut, and everybody on both sides of the table can reach a piece without having a pan in the center.
Yeah, right. That's and every piece has that crispy edge.
Yes. So we've extended the idea of say long skinny pies. For some years we thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a handheld pizza? And I don't mean like a 6-inch round personal pizza, right? But something along the lines of a burrito or a churro or a hot dog. And so we have showed this year at the show for the first time our handheld pizza pan.
So it looks like, in a way, like you're holding it up now for those who are listening to this and can't see it. Paul's holding up a pan that looks like a long bread loaf pan in a sense.
It's about 2.5 by 8 inches. They
2.5
you can get
wide by 8 inches long. And how high are the walls?
they're 2-inch, so they're deep enough to do deep type pies. But of course, you could run thin, crispy crust in it if you want. The style doesn't limit you in terms of what pan you can use. They come as nesting pans for storage,
So they could sit inside each other. What's that? There's a little hole in the bottom of the pan there, Paul. What looks like it goes all the way through. What is that?
Yeah, so the bottom of the pan is shaped in a way that any expressed fat during cooking runs off to the side and allows a channel down the middle with a little raised bump in it with a hole in it for steam release. Because in a lot of pies, especially Detroit's, if the cheese seals off the edge of the pan before the steam is released from the baking bread, it's not going to brown. So in heavy construction pies, that's an important feature. They come with lids for proofing in pan.
Nice.
And you can stack.
So you're holding up,
right?
Again, I'm going to describe for our viewers, for our listeners, you're holding a couple pans, one sitting on top of the other, with in between a lid that nestles on top of the pan and and is indented enough so that the next pan can sit right in that space. So they stack on top of each other. And that would be great for these pan pizzas that require a 2 to 4 hour proofing time. Then you can stack them up that way.
And the result.
And he's holding up now the finished result, a beautiful little handheld pizza. You can
pie.
It's kind of like a large hot dog. you got beautiful crispy cheese frico around the edges there. And of course, it's just a simple basic bake, but it looks like just cheese and dough.
And of course, you can put it in a wrapper, and now you can walk around munching on your handheld pizza.
This is like a perfect ballpark product, or airport product, things like that. Because
I think I was speaking with a guy the other day who's in Pigeon Forge, right next to Dollywood and a bunch of other attractions, and I said, "Hey, here you go," because he says he gets lots of families. Well, here you go. Everybody gets a big stick of pizza to walk around, keeps their hands relatively clean, and they munch away.
It is it's a rectangular stick, so to speak. Do you know anyone who's making these and actually doing them as a saleable product yet? And what do they call it?
Not yet. We call it our handheld pizza to indicate that that's the idea, that you can carry it like an amusement park food, like a hot dog or whatever. I don't have anybody that I know currently using it. We only introduced it at Pizza Expo, so there are some sales, and we've had half a dozen customers inquire about the use of it. And so I think it will, like all the products we've done, I think it'll slowly gain traction as people find out about it.
So that it's a really new product, brand new just out this year. So from what I'm taking away from that is that you're not just waiting for someone to come to you and say, "Can you design me such and such?" You're trying also to create designs that could be leads for businesses looking for new products.
Yeah, this was an idea that's been percolating for a couple of years, and we did a couple experiments and we weren't satisfied with it, and then we decided to really put some effort on it. And it's on our website now, and in fact, on the website there are 3 dough recipes that you can get with it to do a thin crispy cracker crust, a pan style, and a Detroit. And so we've got that information on there with the sizing for the pan and everything that's needed to do the dough, and then you top it the way you like.
What's that? What's the website address? It's just lloydpans.com.
.com, and it's on our pizza section, and it's called Handheld Pan.
And so remember, from personal experience, remember when you're typing that in, folks, it's not Lloyd's Pan, it's Lloyd Pans with an S after Pans and no S after Lloyd, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, double L at the beginning and an S at the end.
Lloydpans.com, 2 L's and 1 S at the end. So that's great news, because I didn't even know about that you can get recipes and see this new pan in action. It sounds like a fun kind of home baker's product as well. It's a consumer item.
Many users have a history of bread baking, and bread baking is chemistry. And so a lot of people have some exposure to that, but a lot of people don't. And they're a little bit intimidated, I think, if you bring them something new, because I do regularly get questions, well, how much dough do I need to use in this pan? And I have to say, Peter, I refer to your book a lot.
Thank you.
I try to come up with, formulas of so many ounces per square inch of pan surface, for example.
Yes.
And I use those. And so we made these 3 recipes for a thin crust, a pan crust, and a Detroit style. And it gives you the right amounts for that pan, because a lot of people I think, get frustrated at trying to figure out exactly how it should work. So if we're going to bring out a new pan that really is different, I think we should supply that information as much as we can, so the customer has the least frustration and the most success right off the bat.
Well, I love that idea. And I'm wondering now, is it available to consumers, to home bakers? Can they order it off your website?
Yeah, on lloydpans.com. For almost every item, we don't have minimum quantities, and you can buy one. Right. We also sell on Amazon. So many of our items are on Amazon. I don't know if this one's on there yet, but, there's many ways to purchase them, and we don't make people buy a case of something just to find out it doesn't work, because I don't think that's a nice thing to do.
Paul, could you do me a favor and hold up that pan again? I want to see it and get sort of my mind around it. It looks real big when you're holding it in your hand, but it's actually only about two or 2.5 inches tall. It's not as high as a regular bread loaf pan.
And it's only about 2.25 tall.
Can you bake a small loaf of bread in there, like a long loaf of bread in that pan?
Certainly. The pan is dumb. It doesn't know what you're baking in it.
Yeah,
so it'll go.
The pan is the receiver of all this. So I'm seeing this pan, and I'm thinking immediately what cool types of breads could be made, as well as these handheld pizzas.
You can do pies. You can do, a pie with a crust on it, on the bottom, a pie in it. There's all kinds of things you can do.
There's no limit. So just based on what you were putting out on the website, for a pan, if you wanted to do a Detroit style pizza in that little handheld pan, about how much dough would you need to put in weight wise?
With 72% hydration, it's 5 ounces.
It's only 5 ounces of dough, which is half the size of most personal pizzas. So
not being a pizzeria owner, I have to temper my judgment, but I suspect that this could be a decently priced product with very low material, very low food costs associated with it. And I think it could be a very profitable kind of product.
I can see it being huge. Yeah. Well, so you guys are in the ideas business as well as in the manufacturing business, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Any other new? I'm sorry, what was that?
We try to think before we do.
Well, thank you. You're driving concepts that will then become products that you will then fill the need. You create the need and then fill it. The great American formula for success. Any other new products in the pipeline?
No fabulously new things, but one of the oldies that I think sometimes is not as well, people aren't as aware of it and the benefits, is the hearth bake disc.
So you're holding up a round disc with a thin metal disc with cutouts, lots of cutouts. It looks like a couple dozen odd-shaped, amoeba-shaped.
Correct. So this originally was an idea that came from Tom Lehman. He said, why can we why can we not have the crust characteristic of a hearth oven in an impinger? Because the impinger gives you the process control and the consistency, which a hearth does not.
Uh-huh.
The deck does. You have to have a skilled person operating it, and even then there's a lot of variation. So he had the idea of a disc that has relatively few holes in it, and they're irregularly shaped, so they don't appear to be, machine made. And you tend to char and dark spots where the little holes are. But this requires the oven to be adjusted to utilize it. So if I use our QDF 40, or a screen, those are equivalents in baking. If I use that in my test kitchen here, I typically run 485 for 7 minutes on a screen-like product. It makes a perfectly good pie. It's like any other pie you've gotten from any chain or even many independents. If I use this hearth bake disc, I crank the oven up to 550 from 485. My bake time drops from 7 to 5, which wasn't a goal, but that's fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
But I have to take off top heat. So in my case, I block one of my upper fingers because I'm making this become a flaming hot hearth traveling through my
a moving hearth.
And
so
you can get.
You're describing, by the way, for the listeners, baking in an impingement or conveyor style oven, not in a deck oven. So that's why you're talking about fingers of air. It's all about the impingement method.
And so with this product, which is my favorite product for traditional size and shape of pies, you can make a product that is 98% the characteristic of a deck oven crust, but you get the consistency and repeatability of the impinger conveyor oven. And again, it can be operated by pimply faced 17-year-olds.
Yeah, because it's putting it in one end and taking it out at the other. But what about those holes? Does the dough doesn't go down and kind of fill the holes and go through them?
You're limited in. I wouldn't run very ultra high hydrations, and I wouldn't proof on it for long periods. But you certainly can go for some hours, 2 to 4 hours.
So,
not problem.
That's interesting. Yeah. So like with a not too wet dough, but one that's firm enough to sit on there without kind of getting sucked down into the.
I think in the 63 to 65% hydration range, you could sit on it for probably up to 4 hours without a problem. I don't think anybody would ever do that because I think those doughs are easy enough to form and be ready to run in fairly short order. But it makes a fantastic product. It's my favorite because the pie, I think hearths bake in a way sort of like artisan ovens in that those very high temperatures produce a lot of steam generation, and that's what produces the crispier crust. Uh-huh. It's just steam injection on an artisan bread oven. And I think that's what produces the product. So by having a disc that your pie can run at these very high bottom temperatures produces that same result. You get a crispier outside compared to the inside. The outside also, the top side also blows irregular and you get bulges and swells and stuff because at those high temperatures, the inevitable variations in the gas structure in the pie show up. Well, that's okay. That's what we all like in that artisan handmade look. So These pies look like they're handmade on a deck oven and they weren't. So once again, we are tremendous liars.
But it's interesting because, again, our minds can be fooled very easily by the proper use of technology, but also its functionality. I think when you've got a moving oven, you've got other challenges, and so you have to adapt. A lot of people are afraid to try doing Detroit style or pan style pizzas in an impinger oven because they're not sure that they can get the right balance of top and bottom heat.
When people call us and they complain, well, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that, I want to achieve a different result. We're always happy to talk to people, however long it takes. I'd be on the phone for a half hour with people all the time. And we're trying to say, well, here's how you would accomplish that. Here are the principles of how you would get that done. And we always want people to have success with our products. So I'm more than happy to talk to people and work them through the challenges and come up with a solution. And it might be just something we already have, but them understanding the baking process itself is sometimes all they need. And I tell people, you need to read all the books out there, like yours. You need to go to all the websites out there like yours, because there's almost nothing out there that isn't known and is recorded somewhere.
Right.
And once you know all those basics, then you can adjust that to fit however your particular pie needs to be.
Are you finding that you do have customers that are using that disc and in an impingement environment to create commercial products?
Yeah, and that is what it was for, was to give you that hearth style characteristic of crust in an impinger. And we do have people doing it, and they're being successful with it. I think it's not as widely known. It is not just a substitution where you take out the screen and you put this in and poof, it works. Uh-huh. You have to consider how the oven is configured, because you're trying to turn that into a flaming hot surface, but that usually results in too much top heat, so you have to adjust it. I always tell people there's 3 things we're looking for in our pie right as it leaves the oven. We want the bottom cooked, colored, and preferably a texture we like. We want the toppings cooked, the cheese is melted and browned, and the middle of the thickness of the dough, you stick a instant read thermometer into the edge. I'd like to see that in, say, 208 to 211 range. I don't want to boil it dry like a hard dog biscuit, but if you get down much below 205, people will start thinking it's kind of doughy. So those 3 things are the results we want. Those all have to happen right at the moment it begins to leave the oven. Those things should have all come together, and you only have 3. There are only 3 things to control it: the time, the temperature, and the ratio of the top to bottom heat. Now, in a deck oven, when the guy gets to where the bottom's done and the top's not, he puts the peel under it, he raises it up under the dome, which is flaming hot infrared, and he finishes the top off. In the impinger, you control it with the fingers. And so you can adjust fingers. Nobody ever takes fingers off the bottom of an impinger, because you can never have too much heat for pizza on the bottom.
The fingers are where the hot air passes through, passes through into these chamber.
It's the reason in a home oven, a residential oven, which is actually an infrared oven, because it cooks by the radiant heat from the hot chamber, not because the air is hot, because you can stick your hand in the middle of the 550-degree air and not be burnt. But you can adjust the top to bottom heat by raising or lowering the shelf in the oven. That's how you adjust the ratio in that type of oven. So all ovens you can do this with. And that's the third thing, which I think is relatively unknown and certainly unappreciated. That's the third thing you have to play with.
And it's also, I think, one of the reasons why these impinger or conveyor style ovens are useful to certain baking operations is because it does you set it once and it does all 3 of those. It's all 3 of those points that you were describing without having to do any lifting or maneuvering or flipping or turning.
Right, with no intervention. Yeah. And people who have impingers don't call it a pizza oven. It's merely a shallow chambered high temperature oven, because you can do crab cakes, sliders, wings, ribs, molten lava cakes, cookies. There are many you can do in that oven. Now, I'll show you one other. It is a new product. It's currently in testing with several people.
Oh, this is exciting. We're the beginning of possibly a new next trend.
So if you need to do things like cookies, for example, if you put them in a regular impinger, they'll be flaming briquettes when they come out the other end, right? So we have a shallow pan into which fits a layer that has the edges turned down to be like little feet. It goes inside the pan.
Okay, so it's a pan with an insert in a sense.
The insert is your baking surface.
Uh-huh.
And over the top goes a perforated top. And so we can control the amount of bottom heat by the liner inside the cooking surface. It can be various gauges. It can be air gapped or not.
Yeah.
Controlling the amount of perforations and the pattern on the top, we can adjust the top heat. And so we're currently baking cookies at 465 for 5 minutes for several commercial customers. And this is the kind of thing that you can do in your impinger for many kinds of products. It just depends. If you say, I have a product A and I want to run it in this oven. What do I need to do? We may have something that already would work. Or in the same case, I did this for cookies. And right after that, a person came and said, I want to run open face sub sandwiches through my oven, but I don't want to have to put them in at the sandwich window. I don't want to have somebody manage that. I want a full pass where my pimply faced 17-year-old can just load the oven and walk away. So we built them a tall lid version of that with the appropriate perforations, which were different for the sandwich than for the cookies. And that's currently undergoing testing too. So there's many, many things you can do if the oven environment is unsuitable for the kind of food you want to run. And I think you should consider other things, because having just pizza kind of limits you, and right. Other places potentially more attractive. If you could offer alternate entrees, appetizers, that sort of thing, desserts, it may mean that you just need to build a different container.
Yes.
To transit the oven and moderate the oven.
You don't have to keep changing the settings or the adjusting any of that.
Oh, you don't dare let employees play with that oven during operating hours.
That would be crazy. And nobody will get it tuned back the way you want it originally.
Exactly.
So instead, you modify the baking tool that you're baking them in, the containers, and you can do all different kinds of products that way. But Paul, this is fascinating.
Those are the things we've come up with, people. Part of them were requests. The cookie thing I actually did many, many years ago just for ourselves. I didn't have any demand for it. But I was baking cookies at 500 degrees in 7 minutes. They were drop cookies like snickerdoodles and chocolate chip and stuff, and they were coming out good. So when someone called and asked about it, I said, yeah, we can do that. So then it's just a matter of tweaking it for the particular customer circumstance.
Right. If you build it, they will come.
I wish.
Well, sometimes it takes a while for the marketplace to catch up with the innovation.
Well, this is why I like these conversations with you, seeing people at shows, is that we try to spread around to people that they have many, many more options than they might imagine. And they shouldn't limit their desires to just what they've seen done before, because if you ask, there may be a way to do it.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, Paul, this has been great talking with you and catching up and seeing some of this innovation that's happening there, and also getting an insight into how the pans are made, which is again, for me, always fascinating. I learned something new today. For the first time, I finally have a better idea of what anodized aluminum means and what anodization is. So I'm going to go look at one of those YouTube videos and watch how it actually happens.
The one thing they may not say, and this would be interesting, it's called anodizing because as an electrochemical process, you're in a weak tank of weak acid, and the negative connection for the electricity is the cathode. The positive connection, which is the part, is the anode. So that's why it's anodizing.
Well, so for people with a science background, it makes perfect sense. For those of us who have very little science background, it's kind of like unraveling and opening up our understanding in a new way. So again, thanks so much, Paul. It was great to see you at Pizza Expo. Great to see you now as we're talking today. And, we'll keep touching in with you throughout every year to keep up with what you guys are working on. And it helps us to understand kind of where the industry is going as well.
Anytime here, we're always glad to share what we've found out, because, we're happy to give away the knowledge, because we want everybody to be having success, whether they're with our products or not, because there's no real rocket science here. We're happy to share it.
Well, but it's applied science and applying it in a creative way to meet the needs of the industry. And like you said, this industry goes beyond pizza. It goes into all aspects of baking and cooking and who knows where else. So again, thank you, Paul, Tiffany of Lloyd Pans, lloydpans.com for those of you who want to follow up on this. I'm sure in addition to the recipes, are there any, do you guys post any videos, like process videos
there are some. I don't, over the years, we've done a fair number. They're on the website in various places.
Awesome. Well, Paul, thanks again. Please say hi to Tracy, who you mentioned earlier in broadcast. She's the CEO of the company and kind of brought her own creativity into the process to help grow this business. And you guys you make a very strong presence every year at Pizza Expo. And every time I go over to the booth to try to get like a sound bite from you or record something with you guys, you're always so busy with customers and answering questions, just like you're doing for us today, that it's hard to get you. Yeah, so this has worked out a whole lot better for me, getting getting your full attention for 45 minutes like this. So thanks so much. And we'll see you again. And thank all of you for joining us on Pizza Quest today. We'll see you at the next episode. Tune in on the Heritage Radio Network for the audio version, and for the video version, pizzaquest.com.
Pizza Quest is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.